Hey everyone, it's Louisa Munson, and I just want to welcome you to yet another conversation with the amazing Jeff Granville. If you've watched our shows before, you'll know that these sessions, they really touch a deep place. It's an absolute pleasure, working with Jeff and asking him sort of like as deeper questions as I can to really get to the good stuff. And he never holds back at all. I think I've posted links to all our previous shows in the show notes here. So if you love, what's going on today, I absolutely advise that you check out our previous stuff because it's like mind blowing. So anyway, I can see that Jeff is in the he's kind of off screen at the minute. So let's bring him on and welcome him to the show. Hey, Jeff, how are you?
I'm great. I feel good already. We're just starting our conversation.
I know, another one. Aren't we lucky?
Yeah.
And I can see we've already got some people watching, which is really nice.
Yay.
And I urge them to let us know. Join us in the group chats if you're watching from YouTube, and send us your questions. If there's something you want to ask Jeff, then please don't hold back. Let us know at least who you are and where you're watching from so we can welcome you. So anyway, what's been happening? Because I've seen a few things in the last 2 weeks. Didn't you get endorsed by, was it Thomas Verney?
Yeah, Dr. Thomas Verney.
Sorry, Dr. Thomas Verney.
Yeah. Well, he goes by Thomas Verney, MD, and he refuses to go by sir or kind sir or Dr. Thomas, he says. So I'm calling him Thomas now, and I feel privileged because I think I brought him up before, but we've had several conversations that led up to his endorsement of what we do. And, having him talk about the scientific based pain relief is pretty much what he said, that we utilize is just an honor because he's got a 40 plus year reputation on the line, and he's an internationally acclaimed forensic psychologist, psychiatrist. He goes into courtrooms where people are trying to get off by pleading insanity, and he's the international rule on that. So and his books, the two that I've read, one from 40 years ago called The Secret Life of the Unborn Child, was just mind-blowing. And I read it after I read his new book, The Embodied Mind. And one of the things I asked him before I read it was, after 40 years, how much of the research and information in your book is no longer valid? And he says, that's the neat thing. In 40 years, all the latest research just revalidates everything he put in that book and more. And the bridge is very short between that book 40 years ago and this new book that's just immersed in, like, the first half of the book is heavy lifting. It's a lot of research data, talking about cutting worms' heads off and they still have memory. And he's like Dr. Dan Siegel actually did the review and endorsement of his book. And he just bows to him as one of the leading, if not the leading, expert on the conscious awareness of every cell in your body and bacteria. And, they document cases of hypocephalia where people have a normal life, totally normal function, and they go in for some issue and they find out that they have virtually no neural tissue. Their entire cranium is filled with water. And their brain function is outside of the cranium. It's a workaround that the body does, and it's a common occurrence. So
how common is that? Do you know?
I don't know, but it's not that rare. There's a number of cases that he cites in the book of partial areas and then complete, like people that have had their entire cranium filled with water, fluid. It's not water. It's
well, that's incredible. And I guess anyone, if anyone that's listening knows about the work of Emoto, Masaru Emoto, with water and memory and how water holds on to information, I guess, we could understand it from that perspective. I mean, that's mind blowing. Wow.
It is really mind blowing. And that's a perfect opportunity for me to give kudos to Michiko Hayashi, who is the ambassador for Emoto and the Emoto Peace Project. And she's the one who invited me to do the co-interview with Thomas Verney that led to our relationship and endorsement. So she's the one who got us hooked up, and he references Emoto's work in his book.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is awesome. I love that so much.
Yeah.
We've got a few hellos, so let me just share a couple of messages. So Shannon Renee Brown, I know, is saying good day. Although she's not from Australia, she's actually from Austin, Texas, or living there. We've got Nubianette, hello from California. Hello back. It's a wavy hand back. Then we've got Melissa. Melissa from Dublin, heading to Lagos, Portugal next Tuesday. Grateful for the show, open to hearing some expansive knowledge because I'm literally starting with nothing. Tabula rasa. Oh, bless you, Melissa. Well, I'm very lucky that I work with some really great thinkers. So I'd hate to have all of that on my shoulders, but I'm glad that you find that there's some expansive knowledge here. I'm very, very grateful for your presence and company.
I'm sure she's probably understating as well. Being humble.
Yeah. And then we've got Jackie Polly, who's saying hello from Santiago de Casem. Cassane, is that how you pronounce it? Let me know, Jackie. Maybe write it phonetically for me. And we've also got Victoria Benson from the US, who is now she's actually in Praia de Rocha. Is that in Lisbon? Is that where are you still in Lisbon? I hope you're well there. So we've got a few people listening in. So we were talking. It's great, isn't it?
Welcome, everybody. Good to hear. And we love questions. This is not a scripted discussion. We really just have intention and come fly with it. So some of the best discussions happen from questions. So please take us down that rabbit hole.
Oh, I know a couple here definitely could take us down a great rabbit hole. Yeah, Victoria's just confirming she's gone down to the Algarve. Well, I hope you're enjoying it. It should be a nice temperature down there right now. So the title for today is Creating from Zero with the Stir Technique. So do you want to give us a bit of an intro onto that, Jeff? And tell us what you mean by that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the whole idea behind somatic trauma imprint release, the stir exercise that we do, is that when we hold somatic trauma, and all of us do, from even conception through in utero to birth, the birth experience, and all through life, we have what's called event-specific biological markers held in our body. And our autonomic consciousness, which processes 15 million bits of information continually, compared to our conscious mind, that if we're really on top of things, processes about 50 bits of information per moment, I should say.
Isn't it?
Yeah, so 15 million. Our autonomic consciousness scans our internal and external environment, and its job is to have us survive, thrive, and procreate, pass on our DNA.
Yeah.
So it wants balance, and it responds to triggering events with the fight or flight system in order for us to respond to a threat and survive. So in this world we're in, where we have childhood trauma, we have bullies, we have all kinds of things that create trauma. And we have anxiety in our life. We have a lot of things to worry about and think about if you care to pay attention to it. So what happens when we store these event-specific biological markers, they're like emotional snapshots of the event, and it's carried in the cells of the body, so that if that situation comes up again, it's like a playback,
Yeah.
and it produces the same blood chemistry as you needed to respond to the first one, and then you can survive. So if we have a number of those, then we're kind of like that pinball machine where you draw the ball back and shoot it up when there's a triggering event, and it bounces off all of your event specific biological markers and sends this muddy blood chemistry of stress hormones in your body. And the autonomic consciousness spends a lot of time. If it's processing 15 million bits of information continually, then it's every second or every millisecond, it's touching on every one of those and scanning them and reporting back constantly. And that consumes a lot of our bandwidth.
Yeah.
The more autonomic tension we have and the more biological markers we have, and what Thomas Verney calls body armoring. So when there's an event that's stored in your soma, we body armor it, and then consciousness can't get in to reprogram the cell to healthy function. So your autonomic consciousness might use half of its bandwidth just to stay up on all your somatic trauma. So when we release the somatic trauma through our exercises, then it opens up, it liberates that energy that you've spent guarding and blocking and being aware and in stress, and it liberates it into new creative potential and possibilities. It frees up. I had one person that I work with, a care recipient that I work with, that likened it to having a computer on with all the programs open and every YouTube channel playing and everything, all this autonomic noise is chattering. And they couldn't muster enough bandwidth to make a phone call or get up and cook a meal. They're completely consumed by just monitoring the trauma in their body and reacting to the triggers in the outside world. So with the breath work that we lead up to the stir, it breaks that apart. It creates, intentionally creating coherent breath, creates coherent heart, and then they start to have coherent thoughts, coherent emotions, and then each incident can be evaluated and responded to one thing at a time instead of that murky blood chemistry of trauma. So liberating that energy and reassigning it to things of your choice, like right brain divinity creation, painting, singing, dancing, anything that you enjoy doing. And we all have something in our heart from our soul that we enjoy. And most of us, when we use so much energy in our left brain, it diminishes the power supply to the right brain, and we just lose our creativity. We lose our desire. We're always triggered. So getting that somatic trauma released liberates and reallocates that energy to productive things and gives us what we call neural integration, where we're balanced between the right and left brain, and we can carry that non-duality into our life. And that was like my Wisdom Con topic, was biohacking the physiology of our divinity. Because when we are in alignment, up and down, coherent in our heart, and we have lateral integration, then we're balanced. And that's what I say is the physiology of our divinity. So then, like, I've done the breath work for so long with my son McCoy and everything he's been through. And then when, like, after he had his kidney transplant, and I was no longer on high alert going into dialysis for 4.5 hours, 4 days a week. We did almost 500 runs with him sitting on my lap, and it's in a triggered environment. Just walking into the hospital, you're on alert, right? You're triggered in fight or flight. So trying to be coherent within chaos is the goal. So I've done it for a long time, and I can feel my own heartbeat in my body without touching my pulse anywhere. So I don't think I'm at zero. I still have thoughts and angst and, things in my life, but I try to breathe through them and take them one at a time. I try to, like the Ho'oponopono practice of clearing to zero. So your cup is empty and you're open to divine intervention and divine downloads and creativity in your day, and choice is a product of the pause. And if you're triggered in left brain, fight or flight, you react habitually from subconscious programs. So when you can get near zero or at zero, then you can pause and respond properly to every life situation, not just a question from your kids or a coworker or a spouse, but like anything that happens in life. So I try to maintain that sanctuary space of zero throughout my day. And then, like I said, when I was no longer on high alert after McCoy had his kidney transplant, and he's drinking his water, he's taking his meds, he's eating his meals, he's going to school. And here I am, someone who's been on high alert for 4.5 years, and my cortisol and adrenaline level is here, and the impetus for it is gone, but my adrenaline and cortisol is still, my new baseline is high. So then I started feeling like lethargic. My metabolism slowed down. I started feeling depressed and questioning things, and I could feel it happening. And I noticed that I wasn't at zero. I was spiraling down. And thank goodness that I'd been practicing what I preach, because it allowed me to see it for what it was and not be part of that murky blood chemistry that allows us to go down that spiral far enough that we're stuck. Because the coherent breath work pulled me right out of it. And I was doing juicing for adrenal fatigue. I was, doing things to my living system that increased my energy. And so now I've started a practice of my meditation, my new nutritional, like intermittent fast. We've talked about the exercising. So from zero, like Joe Vitale's books, At Zero and Zero Limits, that talks about Dr. Hugh Lin and Ho'oponopono. And I love it. I love the theory of it. I love the practice of it. I love the mantra of saying, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, to clear it from human consciousness. Anytime you run across something that's not of the essence of your soul, which is peace, joy, and love, natural states of being, then you notice it sooner. You can breathe through it. And then using that reallocated energy towards creating something in your life. So that's the whole concept of from zero, because they get you to zero, just like my breath work and coherence. It unwinds, but just getting to zero is only part of the goal. The rest of it is now building from zero. What can we create from zero? How can we change our body? What can we learn? And I talk a lot about the living system, where mass and energy are interchangeable. There is no such thing as mass without energy or energy without mass. But there's also that third element of information. Any living system, from a Planck wave to an atom to a body to the universe, we're all living systems interacting with other living systems. Plant, animal, anything is a living system, and they all have mass, energy, and information. So if we change the information, the mass and energy have to change too. So nutrition.
So perception perception comes into it. We were both before we started this, we both watched the same video, didn't we? A little 10-minute Bruce Lipton video, which was amazing. Can I just stop you there for a moment, purely because we're getting some questions, and I really want to bring them in, because I know that you love helping people.
I do.
And that, we're having a little call out.
First of all, as you know, I also like rambling, so thanks for stopping me.
Oh, seriously, I like a good ramble anyway.
Yeah.
So our good friend David Dawson, who's checked into quite a few of our shows, actually, Jeff, is saying, hi, Louisa and Jeff. I still can't believe how effective this technique is. Question, when continuing the stir technique at around two, does Jeff recommend starting at the reset breath or remain with coherence?
Yeah, David, good to hear from you, and thanks for joining us again. And David is an amazing example of being stuck and using these techniques and getting immediate results and building with it and asking really good questions to help him on his path. So when we are at 0 and we're not triggered, we don't need the reset breathing. We can just start out right with the controlled breathing or go straight to your pulse. So the goal would be, like, I was asked last night by Dr. Joseph Delaney, who is another amazing endorsement coming my way. He's actually the first integrative medicine practitioner licensed in the UK over 30 years ago. So he was the first one. Dr. Joseph Delaney.
Wow.
And I can hook you up with him.
I'd love that. I would absolutely love that.
I have him scheduled to interview him coming up real soon. He's one of my first interviews. Thomas Verney first, then Dr. Joseph Delaney. So he, what we talk about is, if I had to evaluate somebody and help them as much as I could in 5 minutes, what would I do? And I would say, find your pulse on your arm. And if they can't find their pulse on their arm, then that gives me a lot of information, because if you can't easily find your pulse on your wrist or in your neck, that means you're under a lot of autonomic tension, and your muscles, your veins have little muscles like these fingers, and they either vasoconstrict or they vasodilate. And when we're under stress of fight or flight hormones, they vasoconstrict and they send blood from the forebrain to think into the hindbrain to survive. And they also squeeze blood out of the core of your body out to your arms to run or fight. That's the visceral effect of fight or flight. So when your veins are triggered by the cortisol and adrenaline and they vasoconstrict, it's hard to find your pulse. So I
must have been very stressed when we met, because I couldn't really find I had to go to my neck and really push it back.
Well, it also happens when we're excited. Like when I'm ready to get on, my heartbeat starts to race, and I have to use it to calm myself down, because I'm building energy from 0. Like when we're excited for something and it's not triggered or nervous, then that is building chi. That's building energy in our body. So anyway, to his question, if he's in a place where he can feel his pulse and breathe in for 5 heartbeats and breathe out for 6 heartbeats and notice that it's speeding up and slowing down, then that's the biophysical connection verifying that he's in homeostasis. So he can start right there. So if you can feel your pulse, but don't feel it speeding up and slowing down, then you want to do the controlled breathing with the on the exhale. So the serotonin controls your heart and lets it slow down and speed up. So it's kind of a reverse order. We assume that with our breathing exercises, someone's going to be triggered and have autonomic tension. So we start with the reset to get the swing going again.
Yeah.
And then we do the controlled breathing to get the serotonin in the system to ease the heart rate and pressure and open up the veins. They vasodilate. And then you can feel your heartbeat going up and down. So if you've done, like David has been an excellent practitioner of these exercises.
Yeah, like he's saying, stir for me has been like a controlled pressure relief valve. Isn't that amazing?
It is.
Sorry
amazing.
to interrupt.
No,
I just wanted to add, actually, my own how it shows up with me is changed in a matter of, say, 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Now, you know, I do it twice a day minimum. And I noticed that, you know, my breath in is much faster, like much faster actually than the out breath. There's a very big difference. And I feel very, very chilled. And when you were talking before about the cost to you when that's not happening, one thing that's happened as a consequence is I've noticed that I've been chilling out a little bit more and being more. It's funny you use the word creativity. It's increased my creativity because, you know, we've just moved, and obviously I was really just trying to resolve everything and unpack everything and all that kind of malarkey.
Yeah.
But actually, where I felt calmer, I found moments to sit with the children and read a book and go for a walk and things like that. And it feels like I've got my family back, which which I thought, you know, as a fellow like family person,
Yeah.
I
I
thought you'd
get
like to
that.
hear
I
that. You know,
totally get that.
I really feel like I've got my family back, and you know, they never went away, but I feel like I've got more time to spend with my family and have little cuddles and things. And
Yeah,
it's made a huge difference.
you've liberated that energy it took to be stressed and
Yeah.
reallocated it. So you've balanced. Now I mean, if they did a brain scan on you, they would see activity in both brains, your right and left brain, instead of just spinning in the left and all the energy going there. So that's
Well,
beautiful. I mean, what a gift. I mean, I'm
yeah,
paid
thank
in
you.
full. I'm paid in full every day by comments like that. That's beautiful.
Yeah, it really does feel like I've got my family back. Now we've got a question from Melissa. She's asked us a couple of things. So Melissa's I think from Dublin, yeah, is saying, I've been trying to release a sugar addiction, and I've been asking HS, I'm presuming higher self, to repurpose all this misdirected energy so that it's used to create rather than destroy me. I use forgiveness process. Is there a place to go to start this process to repurpose this energy, like a video? Well, I can actually find you the breathing technique video right now, because I'm sure you've got something to comment, haven't you, Jeff? While I
Oh,
just find
absolutely.
our
Absolutely.
breathing.
And one of the things that I learned a couple years ago from a nutritionalist muscle tester is that if we are consuming, like for me, a big trigger was caffeine, because caffeine stimulates the heart rate. So how can I ever make my heart rate slow down if I'm using a stimulant that's keeping it up? And sugar is like that. So your baseline coherence is only as good as the food that you're eating, because food can trigger your body into fight or flight. Being hungry triggers your body into fight or flight because you have to go out and get your food, right? Back in the primitive days. So sugar is a good thing to break away from. And as I've done my intermittent fasting, I notice the effect of sugar. Like if I have a treat once in a while, it's a lot. But before, it was just blended in with that other bad blood chemistry, and I couldn't notice whether it was coffee or sugar or bad eating late or what it was. It was just a murky baseline. So a big lesson for me to become coherent and really maximize my breath work and my coherence work was to eliminate caffeine and really, really, really cut down on sugars. And so the best way to do that is to do the breathing practices, because when we're continually in that perpetual loop of left brain reaction, we want sugars, we want food, we're triggered for those things. So trying to quit cold turkey and just say, I'm triggered and I'm going to quit, is a really hard place to start. So if you allow yourself a little bit of sugar and do the coherence work, it'll clear up that murky blood chemistry so that you can deal with sugar just by itself.
Mm.
It's like having multiple things wrong and you don't know which one it is, and the sugar's just feeding it and feeding it and feeding it. So I highly recommend getting away from white sugar, processed sugars, and
Yes.
caffeine and nicotine and anything that takes away your baseline. Because if your baseline is here on sugar and caffeine, then no matter how much breath work you do, you'll never get down to what zero can be. You're constantly going to be triggered by the lack of sugar when you're not eating it, and the sugar when you do eat it. So there is no good, like there are some things you can take that are good for you that have really not much downside, right? And they can be fun to eat or fun to do. Plant medicine, there's all kinds of things you can do that'll put you in a better state than sugar. And they don't have as big a downside, because you're either warped on sugar or, warped because you're not on it. And it's constantly oscillating your metabolism, so you can never have that clear baseline.
Thank you so much for that. I just want to apologize in case you can hear children whooping and screaming in the background. That's our kids on the trampoline having a great laugh.
Oh, that's wonderful.
We still haven't like built in some kind of soundproofing into our new office, but that is coming. Here's a link to the breathing exercises that Jeff and I were practicing. It's a 20-minute video, a 24-minute video, and if you watch the whole thing, but then go to 20 minutes, there's a 4-minute exercise, and that gives you 4 different breathing techniques. So it's the reset breathing, the control breathing, the coherence breathing, the stir breathing, in one go, to make it easier. And then if you find that interesting, you want to know some of the background, on that link, which is to my channel, Louisa Munson, you'll find the other interviews that I've done with Jeff, where he goes into a lot more about the Somatic Trauma Imprint Release system. So I hope that's helpful. I want to add, actually, I grew up, I spent a lot of time with my Flemish grandmother. So she's from Belgium, and they love sugar. And so I grew up having like dessert tablespoons of sugar on toast and things like that. Yeah. Anywhere she could sneak a bit of sugar in, there it was, like 3 heaped spoons and a cup of tea. Yeah. And I had a real big sugar thing. I have a family homeopath, and I know that they do have a remedy to help you with sugar addiction. So that's another way. And when you were talking about breathing whilst also not like removing the sugar, Jeff, one thing that came to mind was EFT, the emotional freedom technique, where you might be, and it's a bit like Ho'oponopono, like where you're saying, even though I'm totally hooked on sugar, I still totally love and, forgive myself. The idea that you can be okay with the sugar and forgive yourself for it. And then it kind of takes some of the imperative off you. It takes the pressure off your shoulders. And the moment that happens, then, breakthrough is much closer, I think.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And it's, I believe in taking substances to bridge you away from something that's harmful to your physiology. And also the tapping and the havening create that delta frequency in the brain, like our stir technique, and it takes away the triggers in our body. So those are all great ways. And it's not outside of what we do, it's right in the same wheelhouse. So
definitely, it's about vibration, isn't it? Something else I might do, like using, I work in hypnotherapy, but I would have a conversation between me and sugar, and talk to sugar and find out what sugar's intention is for you, and find out, like create an image of sugar, sort of like NLP style, a multi-sensory sugar, like have it in your hands and have a conversation with it and find out, because I think there is usually an underlying good purpose to everything in our life, even if it feels particularly bad, because our higher self, its main directive is to keep us alive. Our unconscious mind, it's all about us living and thriving. And sometimes having sugar in your life might prevent you from having a worse, it might be the thing that keeps you safe. Like some people wonder why, alcoholics can't quit alcohol, but maybe in those instances, they might actually be safer with it without, because like to not have it might actually, reanimate some kind of trauma that they're not ready to face. So there's all these different little things in the background.
That's great input too, because if you reflect back on the video we watched of Bruce Lipton and the biology of belief, and he refers to the placebo effect that Dr. Joe Dispenza writes, you are the placebo. It's not the sugar pill. Just happens to be a sugar pill. Gives you the positive effect. It's your belief. So like you're saying, you can reprogram your belief system if you have the strength of will and mind and the understanding. Like if you have the conscious awareness of how the placebo works and the nocebo works, you can then, you don't have to, the placebo effect, when Dr. Joe Dispenza has his workshops, he's not tricking people with the placebo effect. They're using it intentionally to change their lives. And if it has that much power, just because you believe it'll work, then what you're saying is completely legitimized by that science, because we did the same thing. All McCoy's chemotherapy, all the drugs he took, even his bone marrow transplant was a surprisingly small amount of fluid that they put in his body to replace his bone marrow. And I gave him an understanding at 5 years old that atoms are atoms, molecules are molecules. And at that level, they don't have DNA to them. Okay. So like when the bone marrow transplant came, what they're worried about is rejection. The bone marrow rejects the body. It's called graft versus host disease. So we took and laid hands on that. They were ready to hang it up. And I said, can we have that for a minute? And we played some 528 music. We did our controlled breathing. We got into a coherent state. And we said, these cells are no longer the donors. These are your cells. There's no difference in the atoms between the atoms in here and the atoms in your body. So on an atomic level, they're going to get along. And we reduced the amount of potential GVHD and rejection by doing that. And we did it with our water we drank. We did it with everything.
Wow. Thank you for sharing such an intimate experience, because they are private moments that you're having with McCoy. But the information in that moment is really special to hold on to. And you're right. And we referenced Emoto and the water project. If we can reprogram water, it must be possible that we can reprogram pretty much anything. It's how we perceive it.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for that. So we've got a couple of other comments. Joe is amazing. I'm presuming that's Dr. Joseph Delaney. We've got oh yeah, maybe Joe Dispenza. Melissa's also saying, I'd be so grateful for those coherence videos. Times sugar is a big time problem for me. Apologies, I have to run. Okay, well, I hope you run off somewhere really great. Where is the link? The link, I've just posted it above. You'll see it in the show notes as well. But if you drop me an email, Melissa, if you found me through Carl, I'm imagining you have, then you'll be able to message me through him, and I will happily send that to you. We've got Fiona and Simon Wright joining us from the UK as well. They are saying, thank you very much, Jeff. And David Dawson has come back saying, if Jeff recommends one book to read from his library, what would it be? That's a great question, because you absolutely have a love of books, don't you?
I do. I'm finishing a good one right now, and I have 3 on deck waiting.
I mean, every time I speak to you, you mention like 3 or 4 books. I mean, do you have a certain amount of books that you read each week or something? Are you quite disciplined about it?
What I do is I try to read every morning as part of my morning routine. And since July, I've made a big about face in my life because like I mentioned, when McCoy got his kidney transplant, I spiraled. I stayed on top of it, but it really affected my life. I quit working out. Like when he went in for his kidney transplant, I was in the best shape of my life. I could do way more push-ups and all this stuff. And so then I just kind of deteriorated. We were in a different setting. It was a whole different blood chemistry and mindset. And I really got away from it. So I got away from reading. I had just researched so much. I was just flooded with information, and I needed to get it on the website and out in the world before I could really absorb any more. But it's amazing because as I release the information and as I speak and it all starts to tie together, then I'm hungry for more information. So I started the new routine to get rid of joint pain and IBS and my circadian rhythm back and snacking at night, waking up with a potato chip in my beard. You know, it was just like, come on.
There could be worse things.
And it was kind of like the higher self.
Forehead.
Yeah, it was the higher self expo, because it's like, am I really my highest self? Am I showing up to serve people at my best vibration possible? No. So I'm teaching about the living system. Well, what is my living system telling me? So I had to change the information. I started reading again. And what I do, I get up every morning at 4 o'clock and I have a 4-hour routine that ends up with juicing at 8. And then I don't eat till noon. So in that 4-hour period, I try to read a chapter a day out of a book, and that's it. I use a highlighter. I'm constantly finding things that link together with, so I can coalesce all the information into my field of vision, what I want to apply. There's tons of beautiful things in the book that I don't highlight because they don't apply to what I'm speaking of or teaching. I try to find all the commonalities to all the teachers, and usually it's consciousness and alignment with spirit that's the commonality. Okay, so I do read. I'm reading Power versus Force right now from David Hawkins, and I'm almost at I think I'm in this next to last chapter. But anyway, that would be a hard pick, David. I would say it's either probably Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton.
Yeah.
Or You Are the Placebo by Joe Dispenza. It would be hard to go away from either one of those. Now, in what I have is the circle of books, you know, that I've read, and they all tie together physiologically. And like Candace Pert's book, Molecules of Emotion, she tells an amazing story. It's like, one chapter will be about her life, the next chapter will be about science, then it goes back and forth, because she has an amazing story of being a female in a male dominant world, and she would have got the Nobel Peace Prize if she was a man. There's no doubt in my mind.
Right.
And she anyway, so but that book is really heavy lifting. There's a lot of information, and it's like, if I would have read that before Biology of Belief, I wouldn't have understood it near as well. So Biology of Belief and You Are the Placebo are really good starting points. And then deeper on the molecular level is Molecules of Emotion. And it's really deep kind of foundation for both of those books. But yeah. So
wow. Thank you so much, Jeff, for answering that, and also David for asking it. So the idea of creating from zero, I was quite stunned when you came up with that as a title. You know, when I messaged you just a couple of days ago and said, come on then, what's our subject? Because I'm actually writing a course at the moment, using like hypnotherapy in the background, on a week-by-week basis. And in the middle of my course, we get to a 0 point and then the rest of the course is about building back from 0.
Perfect. We're dipping in the same download, Louisa.
Yeah, we really are.
We really are.
And that's what I really love about life, is how we're connecting. And it's so funny because I was speaking to Tanya today, our good friend, Tanya Castillo, about our next show, which is coming up on the 11th of November. And I think we've got a title of plugging in to plug out. No, plugging out to plug back in. You know, again, this idea that we're kind of coming, or like, you know, we're phasing out, and then we can like re-arrive. You know, I'm seeing it like we're coming down and then back out again. That's how my course is looking in my head. It's like an hourglass. You know, we kind of have all this busyness up here, and then we calm down, and then we restart. But you might have a different model.
Oh, I absolutely do.
Sounds like you've
I
got a
do.
circular one.
I know. I totally get the analogies there, and I love them because it's what resonates with people that's most important. And I always use the eye of the needle. I always use, like, if you are scrambled with thoughts and emotions and human windings, your energy is all over the place, and you're going to not respond well going through a singularity like a surgery or a job interview or anything. So anything that's an event in your life is a singularity, because once you go through it, you'll never be the same again, right? So I call that the eye of the needle. So you're this big, if I can, and you're trying to fit in through the eye of a needle. You have to become the calm. You have to become the eye of the storm to fit through the eye of the needle, right? You have to calm to zero. And then from there, you can reset your trajectory anywhere you want to go. So like getting to zero and you have all this new energy to reallocate, it's okay, what do I want to do with it? I've got to zero. I'm through the eye of the needle or the hourglass or whatever analogy you want to use, metaphor, and then coming out the other side. And scientifically, like the NASA program, astronauts use what they call the cone of certainty. And
I remember you talking about that the very first time we spoke.
It's just about that. It's amazing. And then it all refers to this, and it's whatever visual you need or whatever you can wrap your head around and really believe in that works. It's whatever visual works and whatever, but I love them because they all mean the same thing. Yeah.
Yes. And you see it in religious texts, philosophical ones, scientific ones.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. And do you think, this is a bit of a random question. This is the kind of thing that I like to throw in, isn't it? So,
no, a random question from Louisa.
Okay, here we go. This is a bit random.
Okay.
Do you think the reason why so many of us are talking about getting to 0 point or to the eye of the needle is because that's what's happening to humanity right now? That we are like, we like all of a sudden the brakes have come on humanity and we're slowing down, and like some of us are almost like toppling over, where our feet are stuck to the ground and we're still moving forwards, and we're coming to this like really abrupt halt, and then we're going to be kind of spat out the other side and be off in a new trajectory, because there's so many people writing about these times right now.
Yeah, that is so not random. I mean, that is like so appropriate for what we're going through, because if you think of like one of Bruce Lipton's presentations, he talks about the 6th mass extinction and how every good idea has a peak and then it runs out, and right when one's peaking, another one's coming up. So it's the cyclical event where a good idea reaches its peak and it's time to crash, and a new one always comes up. That's how humanity works. And if you look at the paradigm that's ending, think of all the things that are coming to an end. If you think of that cyclical movement, then something new has to be happening, right? And the analogy of the COVID cocoon, where 90% of the caterpillar cells are freaking out, but 10% of the cells, the imaginal cells, have a blueprint for flight. So as things
wow. So are we the 10%? Are we the
Bruce Lipton talks about that, and I've kind of
imaginal cells. Is that what it's called?
They're literally called imaginal cells. And the best part about the analogy to humanity is that on one end of the scale, if you've got 100% of the caterpillar cells, 10% on one end are the imaginal cells, and they have the blueprint for flight. Okay. The other 10% have been devouring everything in sight, consuming every leaf, everything to prepare. They don't know why. They're just eating. Okay. Think of humanity. You've got less than 10% on one end raping the earth for resources and money. And they're just, to me, soulless people that are just devouring. Then you've got us, the imaginal cells on the other end of the spectrum. And then you got 80% in the middle that are just the mush, that are just like, okay, I'll go this way or I'll go this way. I don't know. So the really powerful part about this program and about connecting with like-minded people and like-minded souls, if you think about the fact that every human brain is a neuron in the collective consciousness, that more we talk, the more we're going to have neuroplasticity and hardwire our connections. And then we're going to have more influence than the other 10% on the middle. So we want as many souls to come with us as possible, right?
Yeah.
We want humanity to survive.
Welcome, imaginal cells. Come join us.
Exactly.
Thank you for your presence here today.
Mm-hmm.
You rock.
Exactly.
I love that. Thank you so much. I've taken us a little bit off topic, but wherever you go, there you are. So, we obviously needed to go there, but like creating from zero in terms of the stir technique, getting back to the stir technique, how do you start to build back in your body as you're releasing the trauma? Is that what you mean? Like, like when you release the trauma, is the next part to I'm closing my eyes because I'm trying to visualize it as I'm saying it. I'm imagining I'm letting go of some trauma in or some body armoring. When you're doing your stir technique, are you letting the light come into your cells, or the higher self, or whatever you want to call it, love, God? Are you letting the divine blueprint activate in your cells? Is that the next step, or how do you see it?
Yeah, that's part of it. And if let's talk about that, but let's get back to it. Let's go back to what you said about when you did the coherence work, you naturally started reallocating energy towards your kids.
I did, yeah.
It's a natural thing.
Yeah.
When you no longer are absorbed with the fight or flight mechanism and it starts to go away, power, like I said, if the brain uses 20 watts of energy, is like a dim refrigerator light. If the left brain's using it all, then the right brain has no energy to use. So when you quit using energy, it crosses the bridge of the corpus callosum and starts feeding your creative side naturally. When you quit having triggering thoughts and you have coherent breath work leading to coherent heart rhythm, leading to coherent creative thoughts, you're going to power your divine inspiration and naturally start doing it. Okay. Wow. So that is a natural byproduct of the stir technique and getting down to zero. As you're on your way down to zero, you're going to be reallocating naturally. Okay. But when I work, like, this is the important segue into creating from zero, because when we do the stir technique and I'm working with somebody and I'm laying hands on these pressure points, on these trigger points, because you can do it on yourself. Like I have worked with you, and in the lessons, it talks about finding the places on your body. So what that's doing is it's bringing your conscious awareness wherever your attention goes, your energy flows, right? So just by touching them, you're bringing your conscious awareness to that they exist. I do feel it. You're giving acknowledgement to what the autonomic consciousness has been holding on for so long. And it's saying, finally, someone's paying attention to this trauma, right? You're laying hands, you're doing it. So, but when I work with somebody directly, hands-on, and I'm teaching more people to do it, or I can work with like Carl, I can, you can both learn it and do it on each other, right? It's not something, magical that I do. I don't possess.
I don't know.
Okay, I'll take a
little. It is magical, isn't it?
Yeah, it is magical, but it's not of me. It's like any good inventor or songwriter or poet says, I don't know where that came from. It was a download. I wrote it on a napkin and now I got $1 million song, right? Or $1 million invention or whatever. And in the book, Power versus Force, that I'm reading, true genius acknowledges that it didn't come from them. And when you acknowledge that it's not of my ego, then you get more of it, right?
Yeah.
You're in line for more downloads because you acknowledged it's divine, or whatever word you want to use, right? Collective consciousness, whatever. Okay, so when two people work together, quantum physics, the most tested science in the history of humanity, says nothing happens in the universe without an observer.
Yes.
It requires consciousness to have any form of reality, what we call reality. So when two people work together, another natural law of the universe is an emergent total greater than the sum of its parts. Like I can work on myself all day long, but the minute I have Bonnie or somebody else do body work on me, whoa, it happens really fast because I'm laying the foundation, I'm doing my breath work, I'm ready to go, but I can't trigger it all myself. So when I work with somebody and we're doing the breath in and counting 5 heartbeats, I am coaching and talking a guided meditation of breathe in your perfect design of the divine. Because like Thomas Verney says in his book, The Embodied Mind, when you body armor something, it is being blocked off from consciousness. So consciousness has your perfect design before trauma. It is no matter how much trauma you've gone through, your perfect design exists in the quantum. It is always available. And like Bonnie, who has taught me a lot about body work and energy work, she will be witness. She barely lays hands sometimes, and just her energy is amazing because she is empathetically feeling the trauma, but doesn't have the body armor. So she can take in the design of the divine for the person she's working with and transfer it to them because you are entangled.
Yeah.
Anything that I observe, you observe too. My coherence becomes your coherence. My calm becomes your calm. So you're entangled together, which is another natural phenomena of the universe with quantum physics. So I ground myself. I am completely in the moment. I match their breath work. So our autonomic nervous systems and heart rate variance entrains to each other. We become like a resonant wave builds higher and a dissonant wave destroys. So we become that resonant wave, a constructive wave, and we build an emergent total of energy and power and toroidal fields of our heart. And we can take in the proper design and breathe it in. Because as we know through the coherence work, when we breathe in the nose, we trigger the most primitive survival mechanism is that we take in molecules from the environment. It gets absorbed by the olfactory bulb, which goes directly to the amygdala. And then it emotionally records the smell, the sense. So when we biohack that, when we say, okay, we're going to use that to our benefit, that's an autonomic system that works automatically. So we're going to use it with intention because we've raised our conscious awareness so that when we breathe in with an intention, you're absorbing that emotionally into your body. So when we envision, like Bonnie does, she does one where you look at time like lineal and like a movie film, and say your trauma happened when you were 5. Before that, you were your perfect design.
Yes, you didn't know that trauma, did you?
No, it is not part. And that perfect design is in the quantum.
Yeah.
It's just blocked from you because of the body armoring, right? So when you then, in this moment, bring in that perfect design, it's like cutting the movie and splicing the two ends together. She does it where time is like this, and we stand it on end, and now is now. Past, present.
Wow, that's great. Because I do timeline therapy.
Yeah.
And it's one of the most transformational bits of kit, I know. And so it's almost like I get the person I'm working with, to visualize their timeline, and everyone visualizes it differently.
Yeah.
And I get them to go back beyond the trauma to before it exists, and to bring in the sensory feelings, and then to bring it forwards.
Yes.
But I guess it's just like retrieving an archived file on your computer, if we're going to go back to the computer analogy. I absolutely love where this conversation's gone, because now what's really come through in this session, beyond the 4 different types of breathing, and the touch, is the idea of co-creation and the consciousness and the entanglement. That the absolute magic that occurs between 2 people, or 3 or 4, or as many as you need. We can all hold space for each other. If we're all doing the coherence breathing at the same time, whilst also taking in the global proper design, not just for ourselves, but the global quantum design, the perfect design, absolute miracles. I mean, miracles happen when we're just doing our own.
Yep.
But wow,
And
I just feel a bit like
Louisa,
my head's a bit blown right now.
that is, and I'm glad you shared what blew out of that brain, because if you could imagine, could you imagine a better visual to hold, an intention to hold, than collectively being coherent and having our awareness
I just
together?
Got tingles.
Oh yeah, to heal Gaia, to heal Mother Earth.
Yeah. Yes, because like when you were talking about us as the imaginal cells, and then the horrible cells at the other end, one of the things I believe about the people, the souls at the other end, or the cells at the other end, is that they've lost touch, they've lost contact with the mother and with the father. They've lost contact with humanity. And, I feel very sad for anyone that's lost that connection. And so, as an imaginal cell, for sure, I was definitely born that way, holding space to help everyone that hasn't lost contact is really important. And if enough people raise up like that, it's even possible that people could reconnect, if that's what they want,
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. I'm glad it went that direction. There
have been times when I would have said, squash those horrible cells down the end. Annihilate.
Yeah. Well, and if you think about that, in humanity, the people who are doing the work, doing the breath work, doing the meditation, not medication, but
it is medication for the soul, isn't it? Medication.
It is. And eating the right foods, and voting with the dollar and what you buy, and doing all the things right. It's really hard. And I think the really good example of that was like my mom and many other beautiful women that are liberal and loving, and in that divine energy of love almost their whole life. And then we have Donald Trump, and now you have all of those millions of women hating daily, watching the news and hating. Think about the scale that just got tipped. All this generation of love that they brought to the earth, now they're not loving, they're hating, they're spinning hate, and for good reason. I don't support it at all. I mean, I hate to be even associated, being a white male, with that type of, thinking or acting. But anyway, it's nice to have more people, back on the scale. And like you say, we want as many of the 80% and more of those cells of the caterpillar to become butterflies and fly with us, out of the new paradigm. Definitely. So,
I mean, that's the thing that really counts is that, we can all get back online, that we can all connect back to our true self, and just reconnect, like using your own words, your own divine blueprint.
Yep.
Your own divine plan, the divinity in you.
The design of the divine.
Yes, 100%. I love that so much. And yes, hopefully, this can happen at such a scale that people who have kind of lost it a little bit and have started to feel hate and anger, and because I've seen it with a lot of my friends, and I've been there too. But it would be really, really lovely for everybody who we know has always been loving to be able to reconnect and find that place, because it's really hard when you're angry.
Yeah, it
Um,
is. It is. And the best way.
especially if we feel justified. That, I think that's the worst kind of anger, actually.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
Because a
then,
lot of it is easy to justify.
yeah, definitely. Like when we feel justified in our anger, it becomes really, I think, really dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it could become like empowering, but what I see is people having fights to be right. You know, like I'd rather be right than rather
Right.
than be happy. And
See,
I think we're
there's
going down a dangerous territory there, because
right,
once we lose our desire to be happy, it's like, what are we left with? Urgh.
right,
I know
right,
anger has ripped me up loads in the past.
right. And the point of that is like the saying, anger is the punishment you give yourself for other people's mistakes.
Yeah.
Because when you're
Yeah.
angry at somebody, they made the mistake, but it's your blood chemistry that's paying the price. Your
Yes,
physiology is paying the
absolutely.
price. So, and then when we're in anger and we're speaking and feeling justified in our anger, what's that doing to us and our energy? And,
It's
the best
destroying us.
way is to lead by example,
Mm.
and to be a coherent person, a mindful person, human, and lead by example. Because, like we say, fear is contagious,
Yeah.
anger is contagious,
Yeah.
and so is coherence and calm and love. So if we shine that light, use our conscious awareness and everything in our physiology to be that light and be that example, then you're not protesting war, you're marching for peace.
Yes,
You're
yes,
you're
yes.
moving energy away from this side of the scale and putting it over here. It's
Yeah.
wonderful to take something off the scale on one side, but it's better if you can place it on the other side, because then you've got 2 times, you remove 10 pounds here and put 10 pounds over there, it's
Yeah.
moved at 20 pounds, right?
Yeah.
So just don't withhold, build.
Yes. Yes. So we've kind of wrapped this session up in a couple of different ways, haven't we? You know, like the idea of, wow, let's go really big and imaginal and breathe in the quantum global design. And then, it's like, let's move it from here to here and build.
Yeah,
I love it.
me too.
Thank you so much for joining me and for all the people that watched us today. We've had quite a few people from all around the world as well, haven't we? Because we don't normally go live together, do we? We
No.
usually pre-record.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry that I just kind of surprised you with that one today.
Yeah, that is fine by me. I love our conversations. I don't get triggered thinking about it. I'm looking forward to it. I look forward to our next one. I have full intention to be present in our conversations without agenda. I don't have a list of talking points. I know your questions are going to be on point because you're a living example. You're doing it. You're walking your walk and being yourself.
Well,
And
you know
that's
what?
how you get the divine download of what to ask and what to say.
I'm nowhere near at zero. I have like a resting like ear. But actually that stir technique came in very handy very recently, because we just moved and I received a message from somebody, and boy, did I feel very justified to be angry. And Carl just said, you know what, let's all step out the car. We'll leave you in there to do your breathing. Actually, I breathed my way back to calm very quickly. And it
Yes.
just took it completely away.
Yeah,
So,
it is like riding a bike. It's awkward
Yeah.
at first, and you fall a few times, and
Yeah.
but once you learn, it's there. It's that neural pathway, and you can return to it in one breath.
Yes.
You
Yes.
create
And
that
when you were
space.
talking to David earlier and saying, if you can feel your heartbeat, you don't have to do the reset. Don't worry about the
Yeah,
reset. Actually, that's my favorite breath. I love
me
that.
too.
Because that reset just really clears things and gets the whole process started. But,
Yeah, yeah, and I tried to answer his question. You don't have to do it, but I love it too. I like
Yeah.
it. Like anytime in the day I see something, I just give myself 4 seconds inhale and whatever sound I
Yeah.
make, and then I'm off. I'm back.
Yeah.
It's immediate.
Fantastic. So I'm just going to quickly just say goodbye to everyone that's joined us today. So thank you to Shannon from Texas, Nubianette from California, Melissa from Dublin, and now safe journey to Portugal. No wonder you had to run off, because it's all moving for you. To Jackie in Santiago de Cacém, Victoria from Praia da Rocha in the Algarve, and from David Dawson. I can't remember where you're living at the moment, David, but yeah, thank you for being here today. And for all the other people, I know there were other people. Oh, yeah, Fiona and Simon from the UK as well. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to anyone that's listened in after this went live. We love you. If you want to hook up with Jeff and find out more about his services, what's the best way? What's the best way for people to contact you, Jeff?
Yeah, jeff@mindfulpresence.org. My website's there, and it has an email link. And also I'm on Facebook under Jeff Granville, and we do have a Mindful Presence page as well, but Facebook won't give me any algorithms unless I pay big money. So I do everything through Jeff Granville, and I'm wide open to help anybody. I do not charge for my services, and I'm here for you.
Wow. Thank you so much. Join us next time. If you've really enjoyed this and you want to hear more of this, then just join us next time. We'll be meeting up in another 2 weeks' time. Do you want to go live again, Jeff? Or
sure.
pre-record?
Yeah.
We'll be live in 2 weeks' time. So thank you so much. Take care. God bless. And we'll see you real soon. Bye for now.
Thank you all.